Welcome back to Trauma Recovery Anonymous, the podcast. My name is Richard and I am your host. Mental illness is not a choice. I think we can be very clear on this subject. There's a whole field of medical science treating people with mental illness. There's been studies, trainings, college, everything to prepare people to help those who suffer with mental illness. But on the other hand, we have what we call mental disorders. And these are conditions that are diagnosed in less than 20 minutes. The problem with this is, imagine if you have a sore tooth and you go to your dentist with a sore tooth, and the day you go, your tooth isn't sore. You don't tell your dentist, no, my tooth's fine, and leave. You give them the worst case scenario of what your tooth is like when it's sore so they can gauge what the problem is. The same when you go to a mental health professional and you try to describe how you feel. On that day, you may not feel as bad as it can feel, but you describe to your therapist how bad it can feel. And in that first 20 minutes of your therapist meeting you, they will give you a diagnosis. And they'll tell you have post-traumatic stress disorder or depression disorder or anxiety disorder. And they'll give you what they can give you. Mental health professionals are like shoe salesmen. A shoe salesman only sells shoes. That's what he supplies, shoes. He doesn't sell coats or anoraks or umbrellas or phones or iPads or cars. All he sells are shoes. And if you go into a shoe shop, all you're going to get are shoes. It's the same with a mental health professional. All they offer are mental health solutions, medication and therapy. That's all they have. That's all that's in their purview. That's what they've been trained to treat, mental illness. But if you go to a mental health professional and you're suffering with something from your past that's eating away at your soul, you actually have a soul sickness, not a mental disorder. And then that soul sickness eating away at you causes you to have an array of stinking thinking and faulty feelings. The faulty feelings would be emotional and the stinking thinking would be mental. To be treated solely for the mental aspect, ignoring the emotional and ignoring the spiritual, would seem to be crazy. Science tells us it's all about cause and effect. The cause is what happened in the past to your inner child, and the effect is how does that affect you in the present moment today with your stinking thinking or your faulty feelings. Science tells us we have to stop treating the effect and start treating for the cause. But since the cause didn't happen to you or I, it happened to an inner child belonging to us in our history, then it's none of our business. But more than that, we don't have a mental disorder. We don't have a mental illness. We have an emotional or spiritual illness. We have a hole in our soul, a broken spirit, a wounded soul, eating away at us. On the outside, people can't see this wounded soul. They can only see how it manifests in our lives. Mental health professionals can only see how it manifests in our lives. They can't treat the soul because that's not their job. Their job is to treat the mind. And so they treat the stinking thinking. They can't treat the faulty feelings. They can't treat the hole in your soul because that's not something they can place their hands on. That's not tangible. It's in the other reason of spirit. And so they can't treat that. So they treat what they can deal with, and that's your thoughts. But your thoughts aren't the problem. Your thoughts are your way of coping with what happened. Something happened in your past, or something could happen in your future. If it happened in your past, you're upset, you're sad, you're angry, you're annoyed about what happened. These are natural human responses to events in your past. But because they're in your past, they're no longer relevant to who you are today. You exist only in these 24 hours here and now. In this moment in time, for this now it's 5:42 in the afternoon here where I'm living. For the next hour, this is my present and my future. This all of my life is this 1 hour from 5:42 to 6:42. That's the only hour I have, the only time I have where I'm truly alive. Everything before 5:42 is no longer any of my business, and everything that may happen after 6:42 may never happen. I have this 1 hour where my life is, and this is where I meant to focus all of my attention and my intention on being alive, fully present in this moment in time. Please God, I'm sharing in a way that conveys to you the seriousness of this condition. You do not have a mental disorder. You might have a broken spirit, you might have a wounded soul, or if you're worried about the future, you might be worried about the future. Doesn't mean you have a disorder. If we decided that everyone who's worried about the future had a disorder, the whole country, the whole world would be diagnosed with a mental disorder of anxiety. It's okay to worry about the future. Everybody worries about the future. Look around you, what's happening in the world today. I'm sure we'd all be worried about the children and the future for our children. We can't change the past. We have no control over the future until it happens. Where we do have control is right now, in this moment. So understand, as much as mental illness is a actual illness, a mental disorder is a diagnosis, a person's opinion of you at your worst. They're not meeting you at your best. They're not meeting you when you're happy, joyous and free. They're meeting you when you're feeling down, depressed, angry, frustrated, sad, lonely, fearful, anxious, panicky. And they're telling you you have a disorder. Now, if you believe this, you're the problem. The mental health professional who tells you this is your condition isn't the problem. They're not a bad person out to destroy your life. They're trying to give you a solution based on what you're presenting with. It's like the dentist. You go to your dentist and you're complaining about a toothache when you don't have a toothache. You have something else. Maybe you have a trapped nerve, or maybe you have something else in your body which is manifesting as a toothache. And they treat your tooth. But there's nothing wrong with your tooth. It's something deeper than that. You have a hole in your soul caused by a past trauma. Something happened to your inner child, and you have this belief that it's your job to carry their pain for them. But the truth is, your inner child suffered that trauma event, and they suffered, endured, survived, and overcame it, so you'd be free to have a life for today beyond their wildest dreams. They never asked, wanted, or needed you to fight their battles for them, nor to suffer their pains for them. When you take their past into your present, you're taking the death, decay, and disease of a dead thing into your present, and you're destroying your life. You take your inner child hostage against their will. You keep them on this plane of existence when they want to step into the light and leave this plane of existence. You're their worst enemy. You're choosing to give life to a dead thing and give it life in your present, and bringing the death and the decay and disease of that dead thing that they overcame to give you life in the present, to give life to it again. You're volunteering to be a second victim to something that happened to your inner child. And that's the worst betrayal you can force upon your inner child. Your inner child never asked, wanted, or needed you to fight their battles. And they certainly don't want to play inner child games where they are your playpen toy that you can play with and take out and play with. They don't want to be here. They want to leave this plane of existence, which was a horror show for them. And you have an obligation to let go of your inner child. You don't have a mental illness, and you certainly don't have a mental disorder. You do have a spiritual illness, a spiritual malady, a broken soul, a broken spirit, a wounded soul. There's something in your past that shouldn't be in your present, and by bringing it into your present, it's eating away at you, and it's causing stinking thinking and faulty feelings. The problem isn't stinking thinking or faulty feelings. The problem is the spiritual illness that you've brought into your present. You must give that back to your inner child. And thankfully, there's a solution today. It's called Trauma Recovery Anonymous. It's a 3-hour process whereby you take all the details and the baggage of the past event and you give it back to your inner child, and you visualize your inner child thanking you for their baggage, taking it from you and stepping into the light. And when they do step into the light, you'll feel the release in your body, mentally, physically, emotionally, and most importantly, spiritually. You'll know that that disease in your soul is gone, and you'll be at peace. And when your therapist or your friends ask you about the past and how it makes you feel, you'll find yourself saying, I don't know, my inner child has left this building now. It's left this plane of existence. It's now stepped into the mansion to be prepared for it in our Father's mansion. It's in a place where it's safe and no harm can come to them. And God and his angels are processing their pain. And I'm free to live my life in the present. I do carry the memory of what happened to my inner child. And I feel for them. But it's got nothing to do with me. It's not mine to suffer or to endure or to fight that battle. It happened in the past. It belongs in the past. It's no longer my history. It's their story. So if you're a man, it's his story. And if you're a woman, it's her story, your inner child's story, but no longer your story. And you release it with love and gratitude. And then you embrace the second part of this program, Trauma Recovery Anonymous, to undo the learned dysfunctional behaviours of that learned misdiagnosis of whatever condition you were told you had. Understand, a mental health professional will diagnose you with a condition based in that first 20 minutes of meeting you. your whole life summed up in that 20 minutes when they're meeting you at your lowest. They're not the baddie, they're trying to offer you a solution. But to allow someone to diagnose and to define who you are in 20 minutes of you being at your worst, and maybe you're 40 years of age, and they ignore the rest of your 40 years and what's possible in the next 40 years, and they define you based on how you present in that moment, and they tell you have depression or post-traumatic stress or bipolar or some other disorder. That is completely wrong. There's no way a person should be diagnosed for life with a condition based on how they feel in a moment. Again, the mental health profession is trying to offer you a solution. They're not the problem. The problem is that because you're looking for a solution, you'll believe whatever you're told. But that's only a person's opinion. And that's why recently in a study conducted in the National Library of Medicine in North America, they believe that 39% of all people diagnosed with mental disorders are misdiagnosed. That's 4 in every 10 people. So if you've been diagnosed with a mental disorder, if you've been in therapy for more than a year, you've worked with more than one therapist, you're on multiple medications causing a chemical imbalance in your body, and nothing's getting better except that your condition is getting worse. You've gone from being diagnosed with PTSD to be diagnosed with complex PTSD. You've gone from being diagnosed with depression to be diagnosed with depression and bipolar. If the only thing changing is your condition, then understand that it's a very good chance you've been misdiagnosed. Now, I'm not diagnosing you. You'd need to go and talk to your therapist and find out if you are one who were misdiagnosed. And if you were, you're going to have to look at a spiritual solution to heal the hole in your soul. That's if you want to be healed. It's a choice you have to make for yourself. It can be a very hard choice to make because the whole world is set up to celebrate victimhood and celebrate these disorders. There's so much social welfare benefits and support for these disorders. But you decide whether if you are diagnosed correctly or incorrectly. And if you are diagnosed incorrectly, you have to make the choice. Nobody else can make it for you. There is a solution. It's called Trauma Recovery Anonymous. It's available on the Amazon platform. And if you'd like me to take you through the process, you can email me at appointments@traumarecoveryanonymous.com and I will take you through the 3-hour process. The books are on sale on the Amazon platform, and I charge €60 at the moment for my 3-hour healing event. But you can do this if you choose to do this. No, mental illness is a actual illness, but mental disorder is a diagnosis created within 20 minutes, and that shouldn't define who you are for the rest of your life. Thank you.